Hello, this is Susan Kokinda with your Midweek update. Today is August 28th, and it is hard to believe that last Wednesday, most people's brains were being infected by images and sound bites from the Democratic National Convention. But I think Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. might have pulled off the greatest political outflanking in recent history with their endorsement rally in Arizona coming less than 24 hours after the credits rolled on the Kamala Harris production in Chicago. 2 weeks ago, in my midweek update, I asked the question, will we finally break the British psychological warfare? Last week, in the middle of the Democrats' full-on display of Trump derangement syndrome, the answer might have been not yet. Our organizers were getting reports of disorientation and fear as people reacted to the mental bombardment. I will point out that the best antidote to that kind of disorientation is to subscribe to Promethean Action's newsletter. So today, the answer to the question, can we break the Psy war, is yes, we can. With RFK Jr.'s historic endorsement of Donald Trump on Friday, followed on Monday by Tulsi Gabbard's endorsement at an event with Trump in Detroit, we are seeing something extraordinary. Here is the ad which the Trump campaign has just released.
Bobby and I will fight together to defeat the corrupt political establishment and return control of this country to the people.
And don't you want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country, who's going to protect America's freedoms, that's going to make America healthy again?
I think what RFK's endorsement really shows is that the Kennedy Democrats are actually more at home in the Republican Party of Donald Trump.
Today I'm honored to officially welcome another true American patriot.
Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, if you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
What we are witnessing is the reemergence of one of the most powerful institutions in the world. We are seeing what happens when the presidency is occupied or even sought for by individuals of courage and vision who have a connection to the principles of our founders. RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard are not just political figures. They sought the presidency themselves, and they put themselves on the line, defying not just the Democratic Party, but the imperial forces that have controlled the Uniparty for most of our lifetimes. Lyndon LaRouche, the man who inspired the political journey of many of us, had a unique understanding of the power of the presidency as an institution which can and must transcend party and faction. Unlike the parliamentary systems that dominate Europe and most of the rest of the world, which are controlled by the spirit of faction, as George Washington called it, our constitutional republic is constituted such that the president represents all of the people. Lyndon LaRouche often attacked what he called the two-party system as the contrary to the American presidency. Now, we recognized the potential for Donald Trump to break that uniparty years ago. During the 2020 presidential election, we created a huge banner which read, "Donald Trump, the best Democrat since JFK." And we produced leaflets with that same title, which we distributed to tens of thousands of Trump rally-goers in the run-up to the November 2020 election. People joyfully resonated with the idea then, and now you can see it manifest in the Trump-RFK Jr. alliance. But it goes beyond RFK Jr. Our 2020 leaflet focused on Trump's revival of the Kennedy space exploration vision. And with Trump's launching of the Artemis project to take us back to the moon and onto Mars. Now, with Elon Musk's support for Trump, and with Musk's leading role in space exploration, the revival of the optimism of the Apollo Project culture is alive. And one of the most extraordinary planks in the new Republican Party platform is dedicated to the revival of that manned mission, America's manned mission in space. This is important because one of the most pernicious weapons in the enemy's Psy-war arsenal is pessimism, which is enforced by putting people's minds into a closed system, where the choices they have are controlled by the man behind the curtain. The shattering of those controlled choices and the emergence of a younger generation of leaders like J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, and others who can carry the Trump revolution into future decades is shaking the would-be masters of the fixed universe to the core. What can they do in response? Well, we saw Butler and Donald Trump's narrow escape from assassination. But the selection of J.D. Vance and the emergence of this younger Trump 2.0 generation begins to put a higher penalty on the enemy trying that again. Not that we will ever be complacent about the determined evil of the oligarchy. This is why it's critical to keep a focus on a serious investigation of the assassination attempt. So what else do they have? Well, yesterday we saw the Grand Inquisitor, namely Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, back in action with a new series of indictments. The revised indictments attempt to circumvent the Supreme Court's recent immunity decision. These indictments now relate to Trump's status as a political candidate rather than a sitting president. At least that's the construct that they're trying to present. But I think we've reached the point where anyone whose brain has not been fatally infected with TDS sees through this. And the fact that RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard have been targets of similarly politically motivated attacks is wearing away at the effectiveness of these tactics. So where does that leave us? Well, that brings us to the danger of World War III. In their various joint appearances in the past few days, Trump, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard have continued to underscore with stark warnings the looming danger of World War III. Bobby Kennedy Jr. has done an important job in educating the American people on the globalist NATO origins of the Ukraine war. And in the last days, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Lavrov has, from the Russian side, also underscored this looming threat. In a statement, he warned that, once again, playing with fire, and they are like small children playing with matches, is a very dangerous thing for grown-ups who are entrusted with nuclear weapons. Lavrov also stated that Russia is reconsidering its nuclear doctrine, which addresses what weapons, i.e., what is the nuclear threshold, to use when the very existence of the state is put under threat. Now, sane world leaders like Putin are probably doing the same countdown in their heads as we are to the November 5th election. Can we hold the provocations and threats at bay for another 70 days or so, till it will be clear that the United States will be put back in the hands of sanity? And as Trump has said, he won't have to wait to become president to bring Ukraine and Russia to the table. But then there are the leaders who are not so sane, which brings us to the escalating crisis in the Mideast. Israel has now attacked the West Bank, which is home to 3 million Palestinians, as opposed to Gaza, which before the recent carnage had a population of 2 million. Where this will end is unknown, but it is extraordinarily dangerous. Barbara Boyd went through some of the history of the British-manipulated extremist factions in Israel and on the other side in her Monday update. It certainly isn't to the advantage of the Harris campaign for this to blow up, but there is a certain Frankenstein-quality character to this, coupled with the desperation of an imperial oligarchy which is ready to gamble with global warfare to stop Donald Trump. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with the existential necessity to get Donald Trump elected and to deepen the understanding of his growing movement as to who the enemy is so that we can outflank it. It is not the Democratic Party. It is not Hamas. It is not the State of Israel. It is not a bunch of socialists or communists. It is an imperial system in its modern incarnation as globalism, dominated by central banks and enforcing its control by endless wars and full-spectrum information warfare. The new Trump, Vance, Kennedy, Musk, Gabbard alliance now represents the clear counterpoint to that imperial system. We call it the American System 2.0. In closing, I want to share some observations from the Michigan Republican Convention, which I attended in Flint, Michigan on Saturday, August 24th. You can read my full report on Promethean Action, and once again, I encourage you to subscribe. Like many other state parties, the Michigan GOP has been in turmoil, nominally split between various factions, some of which can be described as grassroots, some of which can be described as the donor class or the legacy party. But the political earthquake which has taken place over the last week now exposes how sterile some of those distinctions are. Distinctions between Democrat and Republican, grassroots and establishment, left-wing and right-wing, big government and little government. These are really sterile distinctions because the real enemy has stepped out from behind all of its disguises and it's revealed itself. It is a fascist financier elite now openly maneuvering to crush its opponents by any means, while unapologetically shredding our constitutional freedoms, devastating our economy, flooding us with illegal drugs, and endangering the mental and physical well-being of our children. So, while a handful of activists are still trapped in apparently never-ending versions of the Hatfields and McCoys, the overwhelming majority of the delegates at the convention found themselves part of a transformation being driven not by anything happening inside the Michigan GOP itself, but from outside of it, of the emergence of a new Republican Party, dedicated, as the platform says, to the forgotten men and women of America, and becoming, once again, the party of industry, manufacturing, and workers. And it's also becoming the party of Black and minority Americans. Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who hosted Donald Trump at his church in the hood, as he describes it, of Detroit, back in June, brought people to their feet when he reminded the attendees, the delegates, that it was the Republican Party that had ended slavery and fought Jim Crow. It was a fitting end to a week which we hope will bring an end to the globalist control through their Uniparty tactics. Now it's up to us to ensure that the movement which is being created prevails and that it is grounded in the American System 2.0. This has been your midweek update, and what a week it has been. Thanks for listening.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.